everyone, Blake Level, 41mania.com, back here with another video on our 41mania YouTube channel. And before we get into some rumors in the world of wrestling, be sure to hit that subscribe button. A lot of great stuff here on our channel. Videos, podcasts, movie trailers, all sorts of stuff. Wrestling, we got you covered. Be sure to check it out on that and just hit that subscribe button. But let's jump in. So there was some interesting notes that came out on Friday, and it talks about WrestleMania 38 and the potential top matches for the card. So if you don't want any spoilers, possibly, although I don't know how much of this is surprising if you've been watching WWE television. A lot of this seems to be heading this direction anyways, with storylines and such. But if you don't want to potentially be spoiled, I'm just warning you in advance. So let's read it straight from WrestleMania.com. It comes from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Let's look at it here. According to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the original plan for Sasha Banks, who of course right now is out due to her foot injury, 6 to 8 weeks, I think, is kind of still the time frame that put her back around mid-March or so. So the original plan for her at WrestleMania 38 was a match with Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. It's unknown if they will continue with that plan or if things have changed due to Sasha's injury. But again, they could still put that together since she's expected back mid-March or so. That would be, probably enough time to put something together for WrestleMania. So that is worth noting. But you go beyond that, and this is what I found interesting, was sort of the plans perhaps as of right now for the top 4 matches at WrestleMania 38. And let's read them here. And again, I don't think these are going to be that surprising to you. You've been watching WWE television. A lot of this is pretty, self-explanatory, I think, based on where things have been going the past several weeks storyline-wise, and the matches that are set up for the Royal Rumble. So here they are, Banks and Flair, as we mentioned, for the SmackDown Women's Championship, if that's still in play. It would also be Becky Lynch versus Bianca Bel-Air for the Raw Women's Championship. You would also have Seth Rollins versus the winner of the Royal Rumble, which Big E right now is the betting favorite. He's also probably considered the favorite by a lot of people, but that could be, Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley. Of course, he's facing Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble for the WWE title. And then speaking of Brock Lesnar, this is the one that's not going to shock anyone that has paid attention to WWE storylines over the past several months, and that is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. Now, we don't know what the scenario is going to be with that in terms of the championships. Is it a title for title? Is it, one title? We don't know. And that at least offers some intrigue based on that. But when you look at this list here, and I'm going, okay, there are 4 matches here, and there's one theme, I think, that comes together with all 4 of these matches. They are all 4 matches that you've seen before, and in some cases, they are 4 matches that you've seen multiple times. I think you could make the case for all of these matches, for the most part. You've seen multiple times before, and there's nothing wrong with having rematches. I mean, we talk about that a lot with WWE because, the New Day and the Usos is the one that gets talked about plenty of times. These guys have wrestled 173 times at this point, probably. But there's nothing wrong with rematches if you can, have a story that kind of lends itself to making it work and giving you that hook to the, not, in AEW. That's, we're talking about a different hook here. That hook's on another level. But in all seriousness, you have to have, like, that hook to make people want to see these matches again and again and again. And I think at least for Reigns and Lesnar, you have a different hook here where they're both in different spots. Although, with the Paul Heyman aspect, maybe it's not different going into it. Maybe it is different. We don't know yet, and I think there's still a lot to be determined based on what happens at the Rumble. So this one can feel a little bit different, just based on these two are not in the same spots they were 5-6 years ago, whatever. They're in different spots now, and so that one can feel a little bit different, even though we've seen this match again, recently. We have seen it before. Many times in different variations, but this one feels a little bit different than the ones we've seen before, so you at least have that going for you when you look at this match. Now, when you get to Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair, we go back to SummerSlam. I was in the camp of, I just did not like the way it played out at SummerSlam, with Becky Lynch is coming back and beating Bianca in 20-something seconds or whatever it was. I was not a fan at all, and eventually I jumped on board and said, all right, let's see how this plays out. I don't think the initial, playing out did anything for anyone. I think it was just sort of very, predictable, bland in terms of how the storyline played out. Bianca, I don't think it really did anything for her. If the original plan was to get to this match at WrestleMania and have Bianca win, maybe all is well at that point, and you kind of just throw out what happened at SummerSlam and beyond and say you just chalk it up to, hey, it was kind of what they had to do based on, having to change everything around with Sasha and all that. I get it. But I still think this is one they're going to have to get pretty creative when it comes to building this match again, because we have seen Becky now beat Bianca multiple times over the past 6 months, 5 months, whatever it's been. And so it's another match you've seen recently, but they just have to spin it in a way that's really, I think, going to make it to where Bianca, is just the person that you kind of have to put in the spot. And that's where, could Bianca win the Rumble again? Could she do that? I'm not sure how this plays out, but it is a match you've seen recently. And I think these are all could be great matches, but that's where, again, the hook has to be there with wanting to see this again to the level that it's going to support a 2-night WrestleMania. Banks and Flair, if that happens again, right? We've seen this before. They've had good matches for the most part. I don't remember a lot of bad matches that these two have had, but it is something you've seen before. And so how can they spin it to make you want to see it for whatever number of time this would be? And then with Seth Rollins and Big E. If it's Seth Rollins and Big E, I mean, we just saw that on Raw, right? Like it didn't feel like a throwaway match, but it was a match that was just kind of on Raw here recently, and it's one you felt like they had to go to, and Rollins beat Big E, and that was that. Could it be Rollins and Owens? Could it be Rollins and Lashley? There is some intrigue with all of those different combinations, but you still feel like you've seen a lot of these matches before, and so I think that is going to be, if this winds up being the case, again, this is a report, and I think you could probably connect the dots and assume that these are probably the matches that they were going to get to anyways. If it happens, who knows, but we've seen them make changes before, right, when it comes to Around the Rumble, and let's be honest, WWE in this era, not exactly known for keeping 6-month or more long-term plans in place, so everything could change, not just now in January until we get to WrestleMania, but it could change, in mid-March. You could have a completely different landscape for what they decide to do. But I think that's going to be the criticism here. If this winds up being these 4 matches at the top, 2 on one night, 2 on the other night, perhaps you would assume that's how it would be structured. I think that's going to be the thing, is can they do enough to hook people into making all 4 of these matches, if these are the top 4, feel completely different, and enough to kind of warrant it being not just another match. And WWE does a good job when it comes to pay-per-views and WrestleMania specifically, building up these stories to the point to where they do feel big. And I think they're really going to have to go with that this year, because they have to make these matches feel different than what you've already seen before from the competitors involved. And so that's going to be the challenge, I think, when it comes to this. And like we said, things could still change. Like, you could still have the card change, and you could have a completely different lineup, and maybe, at that point, there are some matchups that feel fresh, and maybe to some people, some of these matchups do feel fresh. I just think that you're going to have a large contingent who feels like they've already seen a lot of this before, and I think that's where, when you have the roster cuts that you've had, and, you don't really have a lot of people elevated into those other spots right now to be able to support some of these matches maybe that you've never seen before. WWE just kind of sticks to what they know, and that's kind of what you've seen, is they're going to stick with those top people in those matches. Even if you've seen it before, they're still the biggest draws, and they're still going to be the people that are put in those spots. And a lot of people do deserve these spots, and that's where I think, you want to see Big E in a big-time match like this. You want to see potentially Bianca Belair get that final, sort of revenge on Becky, even though I think the way they went about it was kind of backwards in a sense, but it's still one of those things where there is some appealing elements to these matches, but I think in WWE's scenario here, they've really got to, find a way to make you a lot more invested than looking at these matches as though your first immediate reaction is going to be, well, I've seen this before. You've got to give them a reason why you want to see it again, and we'll see. We'll see what the stories are with it, but I find that interesting, and again, we'll find out if this ultimately is the plan, and if these are the matches that headline 2-night WrestleMania 38 in Arlington. So there you go. There's some thoughts on that. For all other stuff when it comes to wrestling, be sure to check out 411mania.com. Our news, columns, reviews, it's all there. And again, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll be back soon with more videos and other stuff here on the 411mania YouTube channel.